Okay, so I am going to start with the prayer, okay?
Okay.
Perfect. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank thee for these marvelous days. We thank thee for this meeting. We ask thee for for thy spirit. Bless us and help us during this meeting to know more about, um, to get more experience about this class. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
Okay, guys, I was thinking five specific questions. So the first question is, um, if you were Shannon McDonald, the vice president of the company, you have hired Thomas Green. Why or why not? What do you think, guys?
So the
Um,
question is, would we hire him?
Yeah,
And that's knowing what we know now or before what we know?
I'm guessing before, since that would
yeah.
make sense, right?
Before,
Okay.
yeah,
So based on his previous experience that he had and his track record, that sounded good.
Yeah,
So the
I would have hired him because he really presented himself and he rose up in the company super super quick. And you never know, you wouldn't have known that he was gonna kind of turn into like not working very well, stuff like that. When he had worked so hard to get the position in the first place.
but the question is in the sense that you would hire him or you would promote him.
hire him because they were working in another company before. So Thomas and McDonald grew up in the same city. So Shannon knew before to Thomas, so they had a relationship before they met in the company. So that was the question. If you were Shannon, would you have hired Thomas Green? Why or why not?
Well, I obviously am missing something since first week here making it online because of work, but obviously I should have read something beforehand. Just getting back into school. But if you're talking about hiring someone you know outside of work, that usually is kind of a recipe for pain and disaster. We try to avoid that at all costs just because of the different consequences and restrictions that can kind of put on you.
Yeah, well, Ronald, you can try to give a context for Jeff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically, Thomas Green was a great seller in another company, and Shannon is the vice president of the famous company. The Dynamic Display is the name of the company. They sell softwares and machines or kiosks to help people obtain better service in the when they buy tickets for any plane or any travel. So they they met in a meeting, I think, Thomas and Shannon talked to Thomas about uh, a specific vacancy in his and her company. So Thomas tried to apply for this company, and Shannon get or no, I think I know I'm missing a little bit. I think Thomas Green was working in the company.
Yeah, he
And
was.
yes, right. Yes, sorry. He was working in the company, but in another department. But uh,
When
uh,
he knew that there was a position for the senior
yeah,
marketing
exactly, exactly.
associate manager, he went to McDonald and basically sold his case, telling her how he had all these amazing ideas and how he would be good for the position and everything. And so she hired him and told him that she was going to give him a chance, but that she feared that he might not succeed because of his lack of experience, but she encouraged him to seek advice and direction from her superiors and people who have been there longer. And then so he started working, and then he didn't get along at all with Davis, Frank Davis.
Frank Davis.
Yeah, who's his boss. And so anyway, so Frank met with him after 1 month to let him know a couple of things he had to work on, because he wasn't updating his calendar, so no one ever knew where he was. He wasn't giving information that was requested of him, like he just like didn't do it. And then his attitude, he complained and whined a lot. And he said he'd work on him, and then they did another evaluation, I want to say a couple months later. And Frank Davis emailed McDonald twice to let him know what was going on and stuff. But yeah, so so the guy just kind of like wasn't enthusiastic about his job. If he didn't agree with something, he just didn't do it. So.
Well, I come from a Fortune 500 company. I run a distribution center here in California, a couple hundred people, 600,000 square feet. That's a real easy fix. Again, once you have your review, if he doesn't respond, you have another review. And if he doesn't respond, you invite him to find employment elsewhere.
Yeah, that's basically what the second email said.
Yeah, you're right. But in the context of the story, McDonald knew him before, and they were introducing a new product because they were already working with services, add-on services to ADMs, and then they shifted towards kiosks or automated services in airports for airline customers. And they were trying to make another shift into car rentals, and they were trying to provide new services for the airlines. So this guy was like a big salesman, and they brought him in. And as you say, well, if you don't fit in, you are going to be out. But because they were trying to gain a new market, the product they were selling was not a mature product. It was a relatively mid-stage product for sale. It wasn't brand new, but they were already in a 60% market, and it was increasingly growing. So in a way, Miss McDonald saw this guy as a player that was going to help her gain the market and gain the customers, because he was a great seller. And the problem is Frank Davis didn't want him at all. He didn't choose him. He didn't want him. He already knew the kind of employee he was, I suppose. And he just plainly said to McDonald, hey, I don't want him. You are putting it here. And from the beginning, he was all over Green, and he was always picking on him. And Sister is right, he didn't work. But since the first day, he was being picked on. So I don't think that's a great environment to be a really good team player. If your boss doesn't want you there is little that you can say. He was micromanaging his methods.
Well, again, at the end of the day, it's always kind of unless the boss is doing something unethical, illegal, or immoral. At the end of the day, it's the employees, in my opinion, and I work here in California, which is the most stringent employment law in the country. The employee has to kind of conform to what is being requested of them. At least, from listening, that employee's got to conform. And if he's been giving specific written issues to improve upon and he has not done them, that is insubordination. And I can tell you in front of a hearing, an unemployment hearing, if he wants to go file suit, which happens a lot here, that kind of documentation is all you need to justify your course. Now, is it optimal for a boss to not want him and hate him? Absolutely not. That's brutal. People don't leave jobs because of the work. They leave because of the bosses, who they work for.
I do think, reverting back to the question, I think as McDonald, as an employer, with him having the track record he had and being the good salesman and the clientele he already built up, I think I would also take the same chance and hire him as well. I think just any smart business person would take that chance and hire a good salesman. I mean, a lot of the times it backfires, but I think it's one of those chances you got to take.
If he has a track record of success, then you want to back him. I agree. I've taken that chance a lot of times, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
But you know what strikes me as something Shannon didn't handle really well is the fact that Frank Davis was also a rookie. He was in the position of Thomas Green before, and he was being just promoted to director manager of the specialist market. So both of them were rookies. I mean, one of them was already a seasoned specialist marketing. And I guess for Frank Davis, it was complicated because he already been working on a mature product. And as you know, running in a 500 Fortune company, you know, mature products are handled different than new products because market has a lot of competition and you don't have space for mistakes. You don't have space for mistakes, not for creativity, not you have to be like on the line because the product is already mature. There's nothing to invent, nothing to gain. You just gotta keep in the line to maintain that. And because the other product was kind of new, you really need a good seller. And I think that the problem for Shannon was that she didn't put his team well because she promoted a guy that was already working on mature products with a hard line of work with no space for creativity. And then you put as a subordinate of him, a guy that's all about creativity, all about selling. And I guess it's wrong from him to mishandle the process and not be there and try to do things his own way. He shouldn't do that. But the mistake was for both of them, not just for Thomas Green, because Shannon made a mistake. Because she put a tough leader with a guy that's not going to follow the rules completely. And that's why you brought him in, because he doesn't follow the rules. He creates jobs, he creates new opportunities, and he grows market. And if you put him behind a guy that's always about just following the line, it's not going to work. But I think.
No, I'm just saying that I'll agree that if he has a history of success and the uppers wanted to hire him because they have a little bit of history and went with the history, I would have hired him too, especially knowing him a little bit. Now, as far as the leadership responsibility to put him in a position to succeed, yeah, that's another issue altogether. But justified in hiring, based on what I've heard, I would have given him a chance.
Yeah. But in the end, I feel that both of them let Shannon down. Both of them.
I agree.
Because at some point, even before it all started, Shannon went to Green and told him the first day. I think that's bad on her part because the first day she told him, "Hey man, you know Frank Davis doesn't want you here, but this is your job. Go on." The first day, come on, man. I've been on that spot, and that's not a good spot to be in, man. You want?
Does that tie in with Eduardo? Does that tie in with the other questions that are on there?
Yeah, did we just discuss the entire thing?
Or Ronald, are you in charge of this week?
No,
Sorry?
Ronald is, yeah.
Yeah.
Does that tie into like the after fact? Does that tie into the other questions?
Yeah, basically, you are talking to the next part because the problem I think is they had different goals. Because the next question is, what is the end goal of Frank Davis after, and what is the end goal Thomas Green after? Sorry, so they had different goals because I think Thomas Green had different expectations when they was hired, and as Jose said, Frank Davis has a lot of experience in his position in his job, so they could to accept on each other to understand what is the correct position in this job. So I think this is the next question: what is the end goal that Frank Davis is after?
Success.
Winning.
I believe that their goals are the same. And I actually think Frank Davis has done an awesome job because he told him exactly what the issues, what he needed to work on. And then him and Green together decided on things that he can do to improve. And then he completely disregarded them, did not even try. And then here you have again, Frank comes back to him like a few months later to do another evaluation. And even in his email to McDonald, he has said, I'm giving him another 30 days to try to start working, see improvement. And if I don't, then I think we should let him go and start getting someone in there. Because remember, Thomas Green was complaining to all the employees and stuff. And he was just bringing the whole department down with his negativity. Do you remember that, Jose, reading that?
Yeah, but do you remember that how Thomas Green found out that the boss was complaining? Some of the other employees forward an email to him. And I think part of the environment is because he was doing things wrong. That I agree with that. But how is it that he was gossiping around with other members at his own group and other team players who were also giving him intel about what the boss was doing? So I guess the boss was so hard that employees didn't discuss any of this in front of him. And I guess Thomas Green was wrong because he was, from day one, he was told, hey man, this guy doesn't want you. And he anyway tried to challenge him. And I think that's just wrong. Even if you have different goals, because I believe they do have different goals, even they work on the same division and for the same boss, they can have different goals, you know? One guy wants to keep the company running smoothly and the other guy wants to grow. You know, it's one thing to just cook a pie or make another bigger one. So that's different strategies, and because they have different strategies, they don't blend together. But the mistake is clearly on Thomas Green. He should have known how to play along.
I see some of that side. I think a lot of the context we didn't get was the communication. And the way that meeting went is because if he was just attacking him, telling him what was done wrong, that's not a good leader. You need to set goals and ask them, make the other person feel comfortable. And I mean, if rules were clearly written and they weren't followed, then I would ask the person and be like, why do you think you don't need to follow these? Or what can we do to correct this? And I would be stern and say, if this doesn't get corrected, we need to go on and part ways. But I think a lot of that was left out in the case study.
Well, it said right here, so I just pulled it up. He had said in the email Davis sent to McDonald, it had said, I am truly disappointed with Thomas's work. He is an intelligent and capable young man, but I do not believe he is making a strong effort.
Yeah. The discussion is just to try to find out why he wasn't making the effort. Is it just that really successful guy and salesman that was working 4 months in the company and trying to gain leverage to obtain a better position, and he just suddenly one day to another becomes this bad employee? It kind of doesn't make sense. So you have to understand what happened.
Well, remember, he had never been in a leadership role before. He was strictly sales, which is what they were worried about, remember?
Yeah. And if you think that's only because he didn't have experience, then you have a point. But my argument is that his leader also didn't have experience. So
I did put in my solution to the problem, I put that McDonald needs to sit down and be like the mediator of the conversation, and she needs to say, pretty much run the show. Say, this is the one in charge. You're the one that should be following what he says. Set the rules and the criteria and the job, everything the job entails. And I think that she kind of needs to, and this is just my opinion on how I put the resolution of the problem, if they want to keep him, they need to figure it out. Like, if those two don't like each other, I would put that on McDonald as her job to fix that. And I mean, she needs to run it, and they need to do it. But if it's something else, then I would say just cut ties.
Yeah, I agree with Jack. So that's open the next questions. Is if you as a leader, you need to think in the correct way. So the third question is who is mostly at fault for the state of the current situation? Who is mostly at fault for the state of the current situation? As a leader, who do you think is the mostly at fault? Thomas Green or Frank Davis?
I think Thomas Green, because no one's making him whine and complain and bring all this negativity, and no one's not making him do his work or anything. You know, he's making all these decisions on his own, and he's choosing not to send requested information like to people that ask him for stuff.
That's my deal, is once you sit down with an employee and say, here's the expectations, I'm going to write it up for you. This is what I need from you. This is what I expect. Once you set those expectations and the employee decides, I'm not going to do that, then he's just saying, I'm not going to pay attention to you as a leader. And you can never have that. Even if you don't like the guy, you've got to be stern with that.
Yeah, I agree with that, with Jeff.
And I think that the one that's, for me, the one that has most blame is McDonald, because she promoted Green without consulting or against the wishes of Frank Davis. And Frank Davis was also promoted to his position in his division. So if Thomas Green couldn't handle his obligations because he was inexperienced, well, that's on you, because you put it there. You put it. And also your leader, Frank Davis, he couldn't push him in the right direction. I know if the guy is undisciplined, well, you don't need a guy like that, but come on, they spent 3 months without talking to each other. And because the writing says Thomas Green was avoiding him for a couple of months, I mean, there's two persons that are avoiding each other. It's not just Green that doesn't want to be there. In a couple of months, you never talk to him. Come on, there's something going on. And because you have a leader that doesn't work with you, as McDonald, you know, if I hire two guys and they both are in a conflict, they don't like each other, and none of them wants to do what I want, I have a problem with both of them. Because the guy I contracted as a great salesman, I put him there to sell, and he cannot get along with Frank Davis. Come on, man, I told you were going to have a problem with him. You need to solve it, figure it out. If he wants you to be there, send me emails and clocking and always being with him, do it, man. Do it. Do it. I put you here to sell, but you cannot go around picking a fight with a guy that I told you he didn't want you. And to Frank Davis, hey, man, I'm also your boss. I put this guy here. I need you to work with him. You should work with him, not just go around and tell me, hey, I can work with this guy. You didn't even try. You didn't even try. You just bossing him around and not giving him a chance. He's a creative position. You know, it's not like a regular position. It's a creative position. You need to know how to take advantage of the abilities of your employees. And if you can say to me, hey, this guy doesn't want to play with me and he's not going to follow my orders as exactly as I tell them. And besides, there's a part on the case that says that every leader from the market specialists set his own marks for the year. And Frank Davis because he was a seasoned specialist marketing, he set the goals for the entire division at 10% increase in growth in the whole year. And I mean, he skipped that part and he didn't give the confidence to his employees to work in that. He said it. He just said, we want to grow this and you're going to do it.
Well, we can attack him as a leader, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, you still have to do what your boss says regardless. Now, is he at fault? He could have been a better boss. But at the end of the day, to have him so blatantly not respond to written documentation and requests.
Yeah, man. But
we all answer to somebody.
Frank Davis answers to McDonald. He's above both of them.
I do think you could put blame on everyone, but that's why every boss and manager has a team underneath them, and the boss is in charge of his team. So that's why, I mean, you could say McDonald's in charge of every person below, but in the end, it's just a giant team effort, and they need to adjust the changes to make their team most productive.
I mean, if you want to fire Green, go ahead and fire him. The thing is, Frank Davis is still going to be there, and you have to hire people that works to his ways. That's it.
I do think every situation I've seen that's similar to this in real life, the best thing to do is fire the bottom person first. Switch someone out that would be Green, and if the problem isn't fixed and that team isn't more productive, fire the next one up, and just try and make a better team to be the most productive.
Yeah, see, Green was with the company for 17 years, so I doubt it's him.
Davis was with the company 17 years.
Yes.
Green was just 1 year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I don't think Davis is the one that had the issue.
Yeah.
But you're nice, Jose. I'm like,
no. The thing is,
myself, if I give someone direct, like if I point out things that have to change and to not be listened to or respected over the course of like 5 months or whatever, and to not do any improvement, I would be really pissed.
You lose the whole team that way. The
well,
people
you do, and that's
are not going to take you seriously.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. It's just that, again, Davis has a boss also. I mean, his team, he can run it any way he wants, but if you already put your hands on the cookie jar and pick a guy, put it on his team, you don't respect the guy. Come on, that's not fair for Frank Davis also. If you don't respect him enough to pick his own people, then what are you doing as a leader? For me, it's on McDonald. He brought all this problem for herself.
Yeah, and something interesting about the questions that I have in the agenda is that all the questions are directly to Thomas, because I think Thomas has a problem, but definitely they need to change, to make a change, right? But the next question is, what action would you take if you were Thomas Green? I think I will change my attitude to understand better my boss and try to follow the production that you had when you get in a company, and try to be a help instead of a chair, a necessary chair to the team. So I think it's important to know that Thomas Green tried to change all the process that they had before they get into the company. So I think I will do that.
I agree.
Amen.
I think all of us here in this group would be good workers, from what I know of you guys. And I think from Green, it's a little, regardless if he's a good worker or not, it's inconsiderate to not obey your superior, and we've established that. But I think as an employee, all of us would take the further steps and be the first man up to say, look, what I'm doing isn't good. What can I do to fix it? And I'll do it.
That's how you stay employed.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the man at the gold makes the rule. So the golden rule is going to win that one.
Oh, and Jeff, when you were questioning, like, if you're supposed to read something before, the assignment was due last night. It's due every Tuesday.
I don't even know. This is my first time back in school in 30 years. I've took a full load, which was a huge mistake. I've dropped almost everything. It's the only class I have left. I've done everything in McGraw-Hill. I'm current. Obviously, I'm missing something and didn't know that.
Oh, you had to read a case for this class.
Sweet. That's one more thing I'm behind on. Hallelujah.
This one's fairly easy. So we read a case study every week, and it's just a different situation in different businesses, and we just review just the questions we've asked tonight. You submit a paper with your answers the night before, and then we discuss it weekly every Wednesday.
Where do I find the cases?
They're on the content section.
Here, I'm gonna screen share it, Jeff, so you can see.
Thanks.
So I can make it easy for you, so you can understand what's due. Does that sound good, real quick?
Yep.
Oh, sorry, I can show Jeff after we finish, real quick. I'll let Ronald finish his leadership stuff.
Yeah. Don't worry, it's okay. We finished with the question, so we can take this last minute to explain.
Well, I want to
ask.
Yeah, I know. I want to ask all of you something. That does any one of you know what is the lifespan of a product? The concept?
Well, that depends on what you're doing. From an accounting perspective, it's how long you plan that thing on lasting.
Okay.
If you buy a product, if I buy a piece of machinery, I give it a lifespan, and that's what I'm going to end up using to financially justify that in the books and show the depreciation.
Okay, from the marketing perspective?
It depends on the product. Depends on what you're going to sell your people on.
I mean, there's a definition for the lifespan of a product from the marketing perspective. Like a machinery, you know, if you're going to make a machinery like a computer, even if the machinery is like the latest generation, how long is it going to last?
Well, it depends what kind of machinery it is. What are you referring to the kiosks for the airplane?
Yeah, no. It's just because if you buy an Apple computer, the warranty says it's going to last around 2 years, and if you bought a extended guarantee, you will get it for 5 years. And I mean, an Apple computer, if you don't drop it or heat it or something, it could last up to 8 or 9 years. But that's just how the machinery is going to last, depending on how you take care of it.
Oh,
but
yeah.
From the marketing standpoint, that machinery only has a lifespan of 3 years, perhaps. Even if it lasts longer, you are not going to sell it quite as well in the beginning, than in the middle, than in the last part. So if that concept will help you to really understand why Thomas Green and Frank Davis were clashing a lot. So if you don't know much about it, I would recommend that you try to learn. It will give you another perspective of why they were clashing so much. Because in the end, if we just fire Thomas Green, we will solve a problem that we have today. But they're going to be there, and you have a root of the problem.
So are you thinking the company has peaked?
What?
Is that what you were saying? Are you thinking that the company and the marketing has peaked and now it's on a downhill and they're blaming Green?
Well, that's the concept. At some point, the company peaks, the product peaks, and then it starts to decline. So there's different strategies for a product. When it is brand new, when it's in the middle, when it's peaking, and when it's in decline. The company should follow different strategies to maintain, increase, or gain more leverage, depending on the point of the lifespan of this product. So the strategy is going to be defined in where you are. So when Frank Davis is a leader, he has 17 years in the company. Remember, they're starting by making services on ATMs. So at some point, they change, they shift to another market. So he was great in the whole lifespan of a product, but in the end, by the time he reached his 17th year, he was seasoned in the last part of the product, in the peak and then in the decline. So his strategies work for that part of the product. And now he's dealing with a product that is going from like mid part. The product is ascending, so it has to peak at some point. So the strategy has to be different when you're trying to peak than when you're going in decline. And because you have guys that work in different parts of this strategy, I think that's what they were clashing so much was for that. But in the end, I mean, you could just fire Thomas Green. That I'm completely okay with that. But you need to find the root of the problem because something.
I think you think a lot like me. Like, do you remember the part where it said he was in Florida and he was supposed to meet with a client, but it was an older client. He wasn't sure if it was going to go through, so he took a chance, left. I think he went to Atlanta to go meet with a new client. And I think that's something I would probably do if the person hasn't shown yet. I'm not going to stick around to wait for a small window. I'd rather take a chance on a new client. But I think that's case by case, and I think the problem lies where he didn't communicate that.
Yeah, man.
They didn't know where he was.
Yeah, well, I think the problem is for him it was very easy. Come on, man, the guy is your boss. Talk to him. What is wrong with you? You cannot clash with your bosses. You're going to get fired.
But that's a good point too. Is he could have just been burnt out. I mean, working with a company for 15 years, doing the same thing, he could have been burnt out just working for the same people.
Yeah, I stand with you. You know, this problem solves easily. Either you fire Davis or you fire Green, and you know who's going to get fired. Come on, man. Even from the economic standpoint, I don't know how layoff work in the U.S., but I figured time in the company makes it even expensive to fire a guy that had 17 years than one that has a year.
I also have seen in real life some situations where they fire both people. Like, we don't want either of these guys. We don't want people who are going to be that immature per se in the workplace, so they just can't both start fresh.
Yeah, I know. It's just that for me, it's, you know, you had to go to the road, man. There's something going on. How a seasoned player, seasoned manager couldn't handle a 1 year guy. Come on, man. And the guy's successful, man. That's blame on every side, but you need to get to the root to prevent it from happening again, you know?
Yeah, it's important to recognize that this case are helping us to prepare for the future. As a student, we are looking for the future, right? Where we are going to work in the future, and we are going to be maybe in a position like this. So I like the point of Jose, because we need to see different perspective to understand as a employee or as a manager what decision we could take in that moment. So it is important of this. So I love these comments. So thank you so much, guys. If you have any other comment, we can give the time to Christy to explain the platform or the class to Jeff.
Gracias.
You're welcome.
Who's in charge next week?
I'm going to stop the emission, the broadcast.